Recording in progress. right. My microphone is on. All right, welcome everybody. Happy New Year. All right, so I would like to call this meeting of the Parks, Rec, and Greenway Board to order on January 2nd, 2024 at 9:01 a.m. So we don't have any remote participation, right? All right, so does anybody have any changes they want to make to the agenda? No. All right, do I hear a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second. I'm seconding, sorry.
We gotta get our new rhythm going. Oh, and I forgot, I do have a quorum, so, yep. All right, so all in favor of adopting the agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Excellent, all right. All right, and then, does anybody have changes to make to the previous minutes? Has anybody but me looked at the previous minutes? Ask that question. Oh, I know. Everybody looked. I know they did.
Yeah.
Yes, everybody read them very thoroughly, and there are no changes. Do I hear a motion to adopt the previous minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye, aye, aye.
All right, cool. Yeah, okay, so having gotten through that stuff, I kind of jumped ahead. So wanted to welcome John in his new other role as our liaison, as Kim is no longer our council liaison, so now John is, because he just couldn't leave us, right? That's
He
how
is
that
the
works.
history of the Parks and Rec.
I
Board,
know.
Honestly, I was
Right.
a little nervous about him leaving.
Same. So thank you, John. Glad to have you back. We'll miss Kim, but glad you're here. All right, so looks like we have a short agenda today, so we'll just go straight on to Parks and Rec update.
Really fast.
Yeah.
No one is here to speak for public comment, but we do need to say that.
Oh, yep. Okay, so no public, no comment.
I love that way of saying it.
All right, so update on event planning.
So really all event planning's got going on right now, we're looking towards the Easter egg hunt on March 23rd. And then following right up after that, on April 27th is going to be Marvin Day. Those are pretty much just the two focuses right now. Going to start. We had some advertising go out starting the Marvin Day. Advertising to save the date went out. Right? Yes. No. We started working on one. Sorry, it didn't go out. It'll go out this month.
The 27th?
April 27th on Saturday. That'll be Marvin Day. But other than Marvin Day right now, just looking for the Easter egg hunt. It'll probably be later morning on that Saturday, probably like a 10 a.m. to 12 or 1. We'll probably separate it into 3 separate age groups, like do like a 0 to 3 and 4 to 6, 7 to 10, something like that. Kind of minimize having 12,000 people there at one time, getting in and out. It's pretty much all that's going for events right this second.
Well, what was the date of the Easter egg hunt?
23rd.
March 23rd.
Is that when is Easter?
It's like the next week. It's April 1st.
Okay, so this is the week before.
Or actually, it's March 30th.
That sounds right.
Yeah, I think
So
it's
it's
in
the week
March
before.
this year. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the week before.
I can't keep up with that.
Is there still intention of doing a alcoholic barbecue event?
Not sure right now.
The reason I'm asking, Valentine's doing one.
Oh,
They're promoting the devil out of it. It's going to be an oyster beer and wine event.
oyster beer and wine.
$125 per ticket. And I was going to suggest, if we're going to do that we have someone attend that
Mm-hmm.
and see how it's handled and see if we can locate some of the vendors that are participating to see if it even makes sense to do.
Okay.
When is it? Do you know? I saw that.
I don't remember right off the top of my head, but they're promoting it quite a bit, and it'd be a great place to get some information, in case you're going to do it.
That's good.
Excuse me. Is that all we got?
Oh, yeah, I guess I could just go right into trails.
February the 3rd.
The Valentine thing is,
It's February the 3rd, and I think it's probably done by an event organization, if it's the one I'm thinking of. And they kind of, it's almost like the Renaissance Festival of events. You know, they just,
they show.
but I'm not sure about that. I know one of them this year is like that.
But yeah, that's it for events right now.
Yeah, and I also confirmed that Easter is on March 31st, so. Yep. All right.
Trails and greenways.
Okay. Yeah, do we need to like have somebody commit to attending the alcohol festival? I'm sorry. Not that I'm necessarily volunteering. Sorry. Brain just got sidetracked for a moment. All right, so that's for events, updates on trails and greenways.
So only trail update right now is the Preserve Marvin North Connector. Our trailblazer Scott has moved in equipment this week, and he is going to start. Actually, me and Hunter are actually going to meet him out there today, but we can consider that one under construction right now. So
Which stretch is that, Tyler?
it's, oh Lord, let me get the road names right. It's at the end of Painted Turtle. Like you go to Painted Turtle Court, and there's already like a trail, and it connects. Yes, and it's going to kind of 90 connect from inside of there up into the preserve trail.
And then you could come back to the village if you chose.
Yes, yeah. It'd be like connectivity all the way there from here. So that's the only trail update right this second.
One of the things that I wanted to add to kind of that conversation about the trails, I know there's been conversations around screening for some of the trails and things like that, and we had some issues around getting a specific type of tree and some conversations around that. But one of the things that I was thinking about as we, whether it's for the trails or other screenage that we're looking for, is, you know, I was coming off 485 in Valentine where they're doing all the construction and so forth. And it kind of made me think about what Valentine had done there for years, which is just off that exit. They kind of made their own little tree farm there. And I was wondering if that might be something that we take a look at advantageous areas, whether they're, you know, along our trails or in specific places in the park that we might be able to set, you know, some lines of trees that are almost like nurseries where we can plant some smaller things, let them kind of start to grow, and then be able to use those trees for plantings where we need them rather than having to source them and so forth. So just an idea that I thought we had where we could kind of, you know, foster some of our own, you know, growth initiatives for areas that made sense to do it. Maybe some clearings, you know, and some of the open space that we've been dedicated, or, you know, places that we could take care of them from time to time, but essentially let them grow, get a little bit bigger, and then reutilize them in other places.
Bob and I were just talking with Keith O'Haron over the holiday, excuse me, and he is building a tree nursery at one of the is it elementary school or middle school? I think it might be a middle school.
Middle school is.
Yeah, and so it's on my list of things to talk to him about. What does that mean? How does that look? How do you do it? And do we have some areas that would work for? We were thinking more for Marsh, but same difference, you know.
Just some of our signage is down a little more trail. So, I don't know how to go about getting that repaired, but they've been up a long time and they've rotted out the board. And I'd recommend putting steel stakes in, metal stakes, and put the sign back up. When I put them up, they were screwed in, so it's just a matter of removing the screws and putting them back. But just some maintenance needs to be done over there. And also, I told them, part of the trail's washed out in one area. You might want to think about putting some crushed gravel.
Speaking of washed out, I meant to mention this to you guys. At least on the 27th of December, the lower part of the trail around the park was underwater enough that I wasn't going to walk through it. We walked through the woods, but yeah, it was. And I had met some guy on, he was walking his dog, and he goes, it's washed out. It wasn't washed out. It was just underwater. I bet it was that deep. I mean, 6 inches of rain in, a couple days, but I have not been back to check it. Just you might want to look to see if there's any damage done. No, this was around the park trail. Yeah. Well, I mean, right. And so it's not surprising. You just want to make sure that it runs off and,
But that it didn't do any particular damage.
Yeah, I don't know.
In the meantime.
Yeah, I mean, it was easy enough to get around. The woods are easy to walk through right there, but. I just thought you wanted to know.
The one at the park, the very backside,
Yeah.
Baldwin Pond, every time we get a heavy rain, that park's underwater every time.
Yeah, it makes sense because it's low there and it's near the.
Also, our daily checks, they check.
Okay, cool.
But Tullamore, I wasn't aware of that one being underwater, so today, this evening, we'll check Tullamore as well.
Well, it's not underwater now, because I walked it a couple days back, but it does go underwater. And it's over toward the new section, that gets flooded out.
Is that where it's washed out, so this part of
No, the washout is further up on the old trail. And when I say washed out, I don't want to mislead you, is part of the trail has crumbled. If you're going out on the trail, it'd be on the left-hand side close to the creek. You can see what I'm talking about. And it's not terrible, but it'd be good to get in there and get it fixed now before it, really gets in bad shape.
I have a quick question about, so I know the trail connector that just is beginning by Painted Turtle. As a matter of course, before we start putting trails in, do we survey the adjacent property lines to make sure that we're like in the spot, or is it just really obvious that we're where we should be?
I think that's more of a Hunter thing, but I do know that he goes in on the plats and it's on the easements, and there's a lot of words and stuff like that he uses.
Yeah, no, I'm just kind of curious because, with the, if you're using creeks as boundaries, they tend to shift over time. And as we're talking about screening and people being impacted by trails and stuff, I was just kind of curious how we determine how close we are to the,
They do stake the trail.
do they stake the,
They come out
survey
and survey and
Yeah.
stake it beforehand, yeah.
Yeah, I was just curious to know if we were doing that kind of as a matter of course, just intellectual curiosity. Okay. All right, so that's everything for Parks and Rec update. Austin, do we have any unfinished business? Wow, look at us, starting the new year with nothing left over. That's pretty phenomenal. All right, so new business. Bob, the screening question comes to you.
Thanks so much for adding this to the agenda.
Oh, you will.
Yeah,
You owe me.
yeah, something like that, yeah.
Not several. Some of our neighbors that abut our trail system are requesting planting of trees to create a buffer between the trail and their property. And that's certainly understandable, and I would too.
And that was their stipulation for saying okay to the trail, yes? I wasn't here when I'm just clarifying.
I wouldn't be 100% sure, but I think so based on the conversations I've had with Tyler. And then, Tyler, Christina Amos has called and asked whether or not Marsh could be of some assistance in getting trees to accommodate that request. And I think what's really important for our committee to understand is the North Carolina Wildlife Federation has provided us trees. We have an inventory of trees that Marsh can get a hold of. But there's criteria that we have to meet to get the trees. And being on private properties just nullifies that immediately. We cannot access trees from North Carolina Wildlife Federation to put on private property. The other is the type of
Bob,
trees.
if I could just ask, does that include easements that we have, or?
Yeah, I've been fighting, I've made a lot of phone calls on this stuff on behalf of Tyler, and it's just, they'd rather not even participate in this.
They changed the program a bit for this year, and that's why it's different,
It used to be.
more strict.
There wasn't much criteria. You know, if we requested the trees, we could get the trees, we plant the trees. Now it's, you know, they really want the trees to be used for improvement along creeks. They would like to use trees for washout areas to protect the environment. You know, one of the requests we made, and this is just an aside, is that Marsh is going to be starting to work with the elementary schools again this year in the planting of trees, and the question was, well, can we use these trees for the planting on school property? And the answer is yes to that, as long as they're involved and as long as Marsh is involved. So here's my point. As we develop trails, I highly recommend having a budget in place to accommodate landscaping for the requests of homeowners that want to have a buffer. And that is a very legitimate ask, in my opinion. If you're gonna put a trail behind my house and I accommodate that, I think it's a simple ask to say, I'm in, but I need a buffer put up. And the thing that with Marsh is, we can't guarantee the type of tree. It depends on the nursery, what they have available in inventory.
I mean, it'll be native, but that's the only thing we could guarantee.
And also size. You can't guarantee size. And if I'm a homeowner, I don't want a 3-gallon tree. I want a nice, you know, maybe an arborvitae or something with some size on it. So in a very short period of time, the trail's blocked. So with that, I'd like to recommend that the Park Rec and Greenway support some type of initiative or recommendation to council that as part of our trail budget, that we have landscaping incorporated into that. And then we know that we have that available. And I think John's idea is a great idea. And we have our own little tree farm, and certainly we have the properties to do that. You know, we're talking about doing something at Marsh Meadows out on Tullamore Trail. That property stays wet quite a bit, so it wouldn't require a great deal of irrigation out there. And the trees would be left alone, you wouldn't have to worry about it. But those are the two things I would consider in the short term and get that fixed. But I think it would alleviate a lot of problems for you if you knew that you had a budget to accommodate these requests. And I think it's a simple ask. But anyway, that's my recommendation. So I'd like input from everybody on council, on the Park Rec and Greenway as to what your thoughts are.
Well, I agree wholeheartedly, given that the new painted trail is going in on the corner of my property, and my sound and motion activated dog is driving everyone nuts as they've been out there. So I can only imagine that we've just now started construction of that corner of my property, and then people are using it, we're going to have an ongoing issue. So as an impacted homeowner, I can definitely see. I think in some circumstances, the ask has been particularly relevant when we are asking the homeowner, if it's an HOA type situation where we need permission to put the trail in certain places. And if those homeowners, as a condition of allowing the trail, you know, to grant an easement or something if we need it, which I know has happened in at least a couple of places. In that case, definitely, I mean, that's a condition of being able to put the trail in. So I like the idea of including it in the budget, particularly for those circumstances, but for just about anybody where it comes to within a certain distance of a property, because, you know, you have, you know, privacy concerns, and if your property isn't fenced, I have had people, there's a log that goes across the creek, and I have had people cross the log and come wander into my property. And so, you know, it just, that buffer helps send a message that says, you know, kind of here are the parameters of the trail, stay there, please. You know, and especially with people with electric fences, you may have encounters with dogs and so on and so forth. So anyway, I would agree. I think the plants, it would be great to have our own set of plants. My one concern here, what I'm kind of leading up to, is that I have also seen some of the homeowners requesting this, or at least one of them, sort of look at this as a windfall landscape beautification project, so perhaps there's a limit to what we put in. They wanted us to line 2 sides of their property completely, and that seemed a bit much, rather than, you know? So I guess maybe we should set up some, if we're going to do that as a matter of course and budget for it, maybe there are some parameters, like certain distance from the property line gets you X amount of screen.
Some criteria.
We would need- we
Like
would
they
need-
need to be native plants,
I
number
think,
one?
yes, species would be important.
Species, yes.
Yeah, I would also think we'd want to do a survey of some sort to kind of identify the areas, and that would help us to kind of come around a budget. So whether that's somebody from this team or staff, kind of walking those trails and identifying those areas where we might think those things are needed, just to kind of survey that out, because then we know, well, if we figure we need, a tree every 10 feet, based upon the types of ones we're looking at, it'll start to help you look at what that type of budget would look like.
we
Yeah,
will-
and the
we will-
local conditions too.
We will likely need to put a policy in place to regulate this, just so that we're fair to all property owners and
Yes.
keep things in line. 'Cause this easily could get out of hand.
Yeah, to her point, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, so it was a wordy way to get there, but, yeah, I was gonna say, I'm very much in favor of the concept. I just think it needs some guardrails to make it work effectively and not confusingly. So, what do we need to do, Austin, do we need a motion for that, to send that to council? Or is this just something we've asked John to communicate, or?
This isn't something that's super formal, so we can convey this to council if that is the consensus of the board.
I would like to convey that to council.
Agreed?
Yep.
All right.
I have a question that I ought to know the answer to. When we decide to put in a new greenway area, a new trail, how long from the time we know we're going to put it there until we actually start working on it and it's finished? Let's say it's finished. How long is that usually? You guys are all new, so hard to say.
We've been, this one that we've been talking up, that's like starting right now, has been,
They were talking about before you were here.
yeah, so
Are we talking it's potentially a year or more before that?
What is, so you said it's from,
From the time you know you're going to do it, we know we're going to put a trail in XYZ area until it's actually done. What's that time frame?
so when you say no, we're gonna put a trail in, do you mean that it's in our trail plans, or that we're actually gonna get it done?
Like it's
It's in our
funded.
plans.
Is it in the
Okay,
plan
well,
or is it
we
funded?
We did our Parks and Green
Right.
Master Plan back in 2020, and
Right.
that's a whole map of trails.
So we have those.
So yes, so we have, in theory, a decade's worth of trails planned out.
Okay, so what I'm getting at is you can plant little trees 10 years ahead, and they will be big trees by the time you put the trail in.
If we don't have, a lot of the trails that were on that map, we don't have easements for.
Okay,
We have no right to go in there.
so once you have it, then once you have the ability to plant something, you see what I'm getting at? You can plant something smaller and let it come in.
Really, some of these trails, we don't have an easement for until, sorry. They'll call me during meetings. A lot of these trails, we don't have easements for until we're within maybe a year or two of
Well,
actually
even
getting it.
that.
'Cause usually getting the easement is the first step
Yeah.
to us putting a trail in. Really, up to this point, we've been building the trails that we already have easements for.
And that all makes sense. All I'm getting at is when it's possible, we could theoretically plant a smaller tree, costs a lot less, way easier to plant, and the tree is happier about it. The bigger the tree, the harder it is to keep it alive once you plant it. And so we could, if there was any forethought in it, I know it's kind of backwards the way things are usually done. You build everything and then you plant things in.
The only issue I can think of is, for example, when we were doing Tullamore Phase 3, we had to reroute that trail. We had to
okay.
change the easement. So if we would have put plants in before, they would be in an area that would no longer need them. Because sometimes we do have to change the easements at the last minute. We have to talk to the HOA, documents have to get amended, plans have to change. So that would be the only thing. If it was something where we were absolutely sure, I could see that, but it's just
Yep.
how it actually goes.
I wouldn't foresee that precluding you from doing it, though.
I mean, you're
because
adding a
as long
tree, what's
as
it gonna-
They're
yeah.
good if there's a couple of trees there later that get changed.
Yeah,
They
and
were
I-
easy to put in to begin with.
And I'm also talking about the idea of if we do some kind of build your own, a DIY tree, then 5 years from now, that's a very different idea than it is right this minute, because right this minute we have this many trees. 5 years from now, we could have 100, I don't know. Anyway, just something to think about, that we don't always have to build it before we put the trees in, or the plants in, right?
I would say probably the safest, because the priorities change every year, depending on, like, there was a time when we were not planning to continue Tullamore for a couple of years because we'd spent so much time over there. But we realized, okay, we already have the easements are going to be easier to get, let's go ahead and get Tullamore done.
Right.
So usually we set aside priorities every year in our capital improvement plan, which is formulated in around January, February. It's adopted usually in March, and then that's the priorities for the next budget year that starts in July. So yeah, I could see probably getting at least a few months ahead of schedule depending on what's going on, but we definitely would need to get a budget in place.
It's just something to think about. The other thing I would add to our proposal to council about these trees, A, native, I already said that, but B, diverse. I don't love the idea of a strip of cedars, even though they're native, a strip of red cedars. Yeah, I mean, I would intermix them with magnolia, for example, and I don't want to hear about the leaves. They're beautiful and they're wonderful, and they will hide your neighbor better than any other tree in the world. Yeah, and if they're in the woods, you don't have to go rake them. So anyway, there's a couple other, I'm trying to think, there's not that many that are evergreen, but those, pines, I guess, but they don't do
They
much.
always get tall and then lanky at the bottom. And
But still, they're adding, stuff there. So, no, you do not want a monoculture. I can't support that.
So we will, if council's good with this, and which I'm sure they will be, we will obviously come back to you all to get more specific details that we would need for policy, for example, because we're not the plan experts.
Yeah, no, we could easily come up with a short list of, because the intersection, the Venn diagram of evergreen and native is a relatively small subset.
Yes.
So, yeah, it would be.
Go look in your yard, right, your woods right now.
Yeah, whatever's green right now is either, native
Or invasive.
Or invasive. So anyway, we could come up with very easily with a short list of recommended plants, and then just recommend that we not, do any more than like 3 of those in a row.
I have 2 questions about the tree farm. I know that Marvin Eford Park has been mentioned as a place to incubate the tree farm. And someone just mentioned about possibly school properties. I mean, where else? How big are we thinking this is going to be, and who's going to take care of it?
Buzzkill. No.
When I was thinking of Marvin Eford Park, I was thinking of, some of the areas we have, like along the lines of fields, So kind of behind the shop there, in that area, you could have a line of them, maybe 50 or 60 of them. Maybe in another area, you put them along another tree line that, is advantageous to them growing in that spot, obviously. I was thinking in some of the areas that we have trails, if the associated neighborhoods have common open space that might be some fields, we kind of partner with them. And the intent would be that these are going to be mostly natural trees that, we may need to give them a little help watering them from the start, but that essentially they're kind of growing on their own like they do in nature to some degree. So I don't see a lot of care and upkeep for them, rather than just the occasional touch to maybe trim or, do something to help foster their growth.
I was thinking, the horrible bamboo area that we looked at the other day, where the oak tree we had to cut down a couple of years ago was, that, once it's cleared out, might be a good area. I don't know. It just popped in my, I was looking at it the other day. And it's a big area.
And we might even find some, people within the public that might offer some of their land for us to do something like that. If they have some open space that they're pasture that they're not using, something like that.
Well, before we talk about number, so are you envisioning trees in the ground or in pots in the ground?
I would leave that more to the experts.
Because
the pots, if they're in the ground, then they're going to be better, and you could potentially take them out. But they're going to dry out a lot faster if they're sitting on the ground on top of pots, and then you get into watering needs.
Well, the problem, because for the tree, the best thing would be for it to be in the ground, obviously. But I've dug up a lot of trees, And they, a tree this big will have a taproot, different trees like this or out here. I mean, you can't get a big enough hole out of that. Even little tiny trees sometimes have enormous root structures. And if you take that away, it's going to struggle. Of course, if it was in a pot, it didn't get to have all that stuff anyway. So this is why I want to talk to Keith. What's the best way to do all of that? Yeah, I'll just talk to him about that. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, no, yes, exactly. Because we know that it happens, right? I mean, the tree farms and all the trees that are balled and burlapped were grown in nursery soil, and they have those.
Oh, they have these things.
And they have those giant spade machines that go and dig them up. So it's not the kind of thing that we would have.
It's also not the best
staff
thing
and
for that
maintenance
tree.
digging up trees to transplant them. So is that? I like the idea of growing our own to sort of have control over the cost and expense, but I wonder at what point we're transferring the cost of purchasing to the cost of maintaining and the difficulty of moving it, because we're not in the business of moving trees, so that would require either a lot of labor or the rental of a machine to get it from where it's been, incubated to where it's going to go. So I'm generally in favor of exploring the idea, but I think there's a lot of moving parts that we sort of need to refine before we decide that. I agree we have the space, we could use it, but
I believe we wrap our heads around the idea that they're small trees. I mean,
Yes.
that you're not going to move a 20-foot tree.
No.
I mean, that's not going to happen. The thing that we're finding working with the North Carolina Wildlife Federation, getting trees, we had this problem with Arbor Day last year. Variety is not out there. They can't even get the rootstock for some things that are growing like wildfire in my backyard. So I don't understand how that works.
Right.
So I could go dig up
I
this
said
right
maybe
now.
what we need
and,
to do is just start a cutting nursery.
I'm just saying.
What we were talking
I've got all kinds of
when
babies.
this initially started, and it hadn't been mentioned,
We could
we were
start
talking
selling
as a
trees.
fundraiser. We were talking about selling stock trees to raise money for Marsh as a fundraiser. And then we thought about, well, let's have a small tree farm, so we have our own stock. And we know how it's been taken care of, et cetera, et cetera. We do a fundraiser, and we have people plant trees in Marvin or in communities outside. So that was one of the reasons for the tree farm, outside of having the tree farm available for buffers. So
Yep.
there's two components. So anyway,
Well,
throw that in.
and if the whole trees union idea moves forward, more trees is better, right? We'll have, yeah. So we've got another need for trees from that point, yep.
Okay, so what do we do with this moving forward? You're gonna talk to Keith and maybe report back to
I'll
us?
come back
and-
next time, or maybe even in between if I get some good information,
Okay.
and just share what he's doing at the middle school, whose name I can't remember, and how he set that up and how he would suggest we did the same thing,
Okay,
because, I mean, he knows.
awesome. More info is better.
Yep.
Okay, cool. All
So
right.
that, now we have an action item, Austin,
Yes.
and I guess unfinished business for next time.
Oh, no, we've started unfinished business. Okay, so now we are on to discussion of the tree lighting. Tyler?
I can't believe we're going to talk about this. Get it on the calendar.
Just trying to get a date rolling for next year, just to go ahead and get Santa Claus booked and get a bunch of people booked up, just to make it nice and easy.
Oh,
yeah.
that's okay. Hey, while we're thinking about it, right?
Well, no, I appreciate the...
Yeah, while Santa's hot right now. So the date kind of,
My understanding is that we have a question as to whether or not we're going to move the date up a
well,
little earlier in the month.
yeah, I think it'd be great. I wanted to ask you guys about it being the very first weekend in December, and I think in the past it's been the second weekend. With the way the dates fall, I don't know. December 1st is a Sunday this year, so really the first full weekend would be December 7th, so it'd be very similar date. But I guess in theory, it's maybe this upcoming year is not the best example of it, but following that, does everybody like the idea of the very first weekend, like the first Saturday of every December?
I think it's a good idea.
I like the first Saturday of December that's our
To
day.
kick it off.
Always.
Yeah.
Why not? Well, so in 25, it'll be the 6th. You know,
Yeah,
I mean, you know,
yeah,
you're
it'll
not going to get the first for a while, but.
Yeah,
From a historical perspective of why we ended up the 2nd in December
Reason for being here, yes.
was we used to share the same Santa Claus with Waxhaw, and Waxhaw was the first. So
So now there are more Santa
that's kind of
Clauses?
how it got determined initially many years ago. So I don't think anybody's really locked into that date. And I have heard it expressed that it might be good just to move it up because, you know, the holiday season pretty much kicks off Thanksgiving. You know, people are really starting right after that with Black Friday and putting up their, you know,
No, they
their
put up their
own
stuff
ornaments,
in
everything.
Halloween, but
Yeah, so, so I,
Especially this year, man. People were hyped about Christmas this year. So that was
Post-COVID, I think
early.
I think COVID did it. Everybody decided to go.
yes.
Yeah, it's kind of.
If somebody, yeah, because yeah.
I just think it's a great way to kick it off, too. Kick off the holidays, right? And as long as you don't go into November, I'm with you. I
was about to say, no one wants any
refuse to
November,
go before.
You'll probably get more people too, because the further you go into December, the more busy people are.
Yeah, this is true. Would it actually correspond with Friendship Tree? Because don't we have to have the gifts and everything delivered before that? The 10th, okay.
Well, then it would be a good reminder day.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that's why I
maybe
was
you could give a
asking.
status update to the community about how many people, how many children were adopted during the Friendship Tree program.
Absolutely.
And co-promote that. Because that's a big thing for our community, I think. Everybody feels good about it.
And it could be way bigger,
Yes.
as long as we can manage it. Yeah.
Well, and we need a microphone for anybody addressing, because even Joe is.
yeah.
We didn't have.
Well, I think we have all that stuff.
Yeah, we had
I
that
mentioned to
combo,
Tyler, we
yeah.
had that conversation where we do have the stands and everything. They just weren't really aware with the move. I think it got tucked back in a closet somewhere, so we'll be able
Well,
to
and
get that.
honestly, I would
back.
not have realized it was, you know, fair if you didn't realize that it was necessary, you know. But having attended, I mean, it all went off really, really well, except for whatever the fuse problem was with the tree
Fuse
actually
the
lighting.
phone problem.
Yeah.
Yes, but you solved it.
But yes, it's Tyler to the rescue. So other than that, I mean, the whole event, I think, went off really, really well. The only thing, as I was standing there going, okay, note to self next year, is, you know, couldn't really hear anybody who was addressing the
Who was
crowd.
just trying to chat,
Yeah, over the hubbub. So, okay. All right, so we are agreed that the tree lighting is the first Saturday,
From
regardless,
here on,
even if that's December 1.
I can take that.
Okay.
It's going to be a long time before
Yeah,
that happens.
just, you know, full disclosure. All right, first Saturday of December. All right, so do we have any action items that we need to review?
We're going to take your idea about the tree farm, tree policies,
Screening policy.
tree
yeah,
screening policies.
So that's two different
Yeah.
things, right? Okay.
We'll put it together as one package and take that to council, and brief them on it. And we'll probably come back to you all to kind of nail down some of the more formalized details if they're good to move forward with that.
Okay.
We'll let you know.
We're going to need tree stewards.
Yeah, and you're going to get information from Keith about how a tree farm would actually
What
function.
that even means.
Yeah, what the ins and outs of that are. Okay. All right, so that's action items. Ongoing action item list.
Opening the list now. I don't know if we have anything, honestly. John, did you obtain the resource used by realtors to determine recent home sales? That was the discussion about.
Oh, yeah. Our welcome.
Yeah, the guy that I spoke to is a realtor, and he said that the MLS actually publishes new existing home transfers. But I was going to get back to Kimberly on that because she might have access to that. Yeah, I did confirm with the guy that initially has given me that stuff for at least my development.
So Bob, I don't know if you were here, but what we discussed is for anybody moving into Marvin, could we send them like a little gift, something or other that says, these are the services in the area, the marsh and a welcome basket, you know, maybe. Yeah, and few coupons, that kind of thing, is welcome to the neighborhood, but also to get them on our newsletters and stuff. I mean, your newsletter, ours, that kind of thing, yeah.
Yeah, and the question was, the village is
opt-out.
aware of all the new homes that are being created and
built,
sold.
yeah.
How do we handle the existing home sales?
Well, that's going to, in the future, be way more of the newcomers, because we're going to run out of space.
Do we have a budget for what?
For what?
I don't have a gift shop.
We don't even have a
That's the
list
first
yet.
I heard of a gift basket.
Yeah,
I
not a-
thought it was a
yes.
welcome letter.
Yeah, oh, well,
Yeah.
maybe, well,
Just informing them of, services.
A virtual welcome.
For a brief moment, I imagined myself putting together gift baskets in my office. So yeah, thank you for not making me do that.
I would think
I don't know what
you
we would
and
give
the
them.
elf costume hand delivering them.
and they get a picture, yeah.
I'm gonna need a raise.
Hey, he didn't say no.
Right?
That being said, I mean, with the extent that we've had, local businesses and stuff participate in things, it could eventually grow to something like that if some of the local businesses wanted to.
And we do have
be
some
a
of
part
those.
of that process.
We do have some of those in-home type businesses. If you look on your Apple map, you'll find all kinds of businesses that don't have a big sign out front, There's a woman who makes lovely sugar cakes somewhere in this area.
I would say technically they should have occupational permits for the homes, so Hunter would be able to
I
tell
mean,
us
you can find them
exactly
online.
who those
Yeah.
people are.
Anyway, they might be interesting.
So anyway, yeah, any of the local vendors might
Mm-hmm.
be willing to, pay for a little advertising, which then would pay for any costs of.
Elf costumes?
Yeah, exactly.
Got it.
Does it pay for the dry cleaning of the elf costume?
I mean, it's part of the deal.
That's got to have a clean costume.
Last
Elves are
thing,
not dirty.
we've had on here since 2021 pocket park projects with Girl Scouts and Eagle Scouts. Do you guys want to keep those on this list as on hold, or take those off since? It looks like
Well, but the last time we talked about said pocket park, we were talking about pickleball courts at $125,000 apiece. So because of our one person who came to one of our meetings, or one public person.
Well, apparently that was sort of a pinpoint of a larger groundswell.
Apparently.
That it had come up individually in multiple avenues, I understood.
I have gotten multiple pickleball requests in the past, and
Yeah.
I'm not the pickleball department, so
Yeah, I'm not, as I asked the guy, I am not part of the pickleball community myself, so I am unaware of the intricacies of this. But there is apparently nationwide and locally a huge demand for pickleball. So I would be in favor of removing those as ongoing action items for the reason that if we are always open to Eagle Scout and Girl Scout projects if they approach us, and depending on what kind of project they have.
This was more that they were going to help us fix the park.
Fix the
Yeah,
park.
and we thought that they were a good volunteer group. That's all the scout part was about. If we were going to plant a bunch of trees, we were going to call the scouts and see
we're
if they.
always going to get. There's always going to be Eagle Scouts. We get a couple. We probably get what, one or two every
Year or so, probably. And so, I mean,
That is true. That is true.
and usually the Eagle Scouts will approach you with a concept of what they want to do, but yes, I think we can just leave it to, I think we can take those off and leave it to ourselves, that if we have work that needs to be done, it will occur to us to reach out to.
We have a process in place that, I don't know if it's been updated,
It's on our website.
is that we have on our website supposedly projects we want to have accomplished in terms of priority order. So
Oh,
that
do we?
when an Eagle Scout volunteers, we have projects for them, and they can either accept or reject, saying that's either not big enough, it's got to be a bigger project for me, or smaller, so on and so forth. And I don't know if that has been updated or not.
It was updated after the last one. So if you go on our website, it's under resources and under how do I volunteer opportunities and volunteer. There's a requested scout project section. Currently, we have on there trailhead markers, picnic tables and benches for the pocket park. Which we may still need benches, and fitness trail stations. Bob's kindly been fielding those requests in the past few years. But if anyone here is aware of a scout, we'll obviously direct them to, I guess,
And
Tyler. I don't know.
one thing, Austin, correct me if I'm wrong, but specifically when it comes to the public pocket park and the potential for pickleball, that is something that we made some changes to the geo bond literature so that it could potentially be part of any of those projects that we have from a funding perspective out of the geo bonds. So,
Okay.
It would already be fine for us to use geo bond funds for this, but we did include those on our marketing materials, because
Because it's a big thing. I mean, that was
pickleball
my
and
takeaway from that
pickleball and tennis
was,
is something I've heard about for years here, so.
yeah, if anything's going to pass that geo bond, it's going to be the pickleball.
There's an amazing pickleball social club 2 minutes from my house. It's incredible.
That's amazing. Okay, so based on all of that information, it sounds like Scouts already have an excellent avenue for knowing what projects we need, volunteering, and doing that process. And if we do find that we have a park anywhere of any kind that we need assistance with, we will put it upon ourselves to think, let's contact the Scouts so we can take those off
Okay,
the
that's done.
ongoing stuff. All right, we're kind of to the end. Any board member comments? I think we've all commented. All right.
yeah, I just have one thing, which is some good news, and still kind of preliminarily, but we have been awarded the Part F grant for $1 million, with the Village of Marvin posting half of that at $500,000. This would be specifically for the development of the Village Hall Park, which in conjunction with the GEO bond referendum, which has some components of that and would potentially fund part of that $500,000. But we'll have more to come on that in coming meetings. This is the one that they're talking about, right, basically kind of behind us here and off to the side.
Is it this?
Where they talked about the potential amphitheater, walking loop. It would be connected to the Marvin Loop, yeah.
So,
It is that.
so it's the amphitheater.
That is
Yes.
that is a portion of
That,
of
that,
it,
that's a
yes, if we
part of
decide
it,
to-
that the
that's just a
development of that,
proposed-
additional parking, all of those
But that is
things,
the
yes.
location and the initial concept, yes.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's awesome, thanks.
That is a reimbursement grant, I believe, so we spend the entire.
We spend the money,
We spend all the money first, and then we get 500,000 back.
that's scary.
Oh, no kidding.
That's the world of grants, so.
Yep, okay. But that's exciting, though, that we can maybe move forward on that, so
It's a big win.
that is huge, that's really cool. Looking forward to seeing what we do with that. All right,
And just one thing, is there a time frame associated with that? Just so that
and
the
it's-
board's aware.
I think it's December 2026.
Let me ask you a question. Is that tied into the bond in any way? The reason I'm asking.
Yes. Go ahead.
No, I'm wanting to know if that funding, if the bond fails, do we still get the $1 million?
Yes, we still get the $1 million if the bond does not pass.
Well, we still spend, if we spend $1 million, we get 500 back. Yeah. But now,
So they're not-
without the bond getting that $1 million though,
yeah, with that,
by 2026 would be
that's a big stretch,
a big stretch.
yeah.
But they're not interconnected.
They're not, but we're required through the Part F grant to complete the project by December 2026. And so if we can't do that, obviously, we would have to address that and change the project scope and go through a whole process for that. A lot of administrative things there.
Oh, fun for you.
Oh, no, that's Christina. Fun for Christina.
Oh, it all trickles down, I'm sure.
Oh, it does.
All right, okay, so if that's everything, then I move to adjourn this Parks Rec and Greenway Board on January 2nd, 2024 at 9:50 a.m., under an hour.
Need a second.
So moved. Seconded.
All in favor? Aye.
Adjourned.
Wasn't that Clemson game a good game?
Oh my gosh, one of the
Hold
best
on, make
ever.
sure microphones are off first.
That much back and
Okay, what?
forth in the fourth quarter was unbelievable.
You owe
And then
this
last
Friday.
night's game.
Oh, that was a great game.
I couldn't, you're looking at 1:52 left, and you thought it was done, but then that injury happens, give them a whole nother chance.